Portland went well. What's up, Archons? I'm Flightless Pheasant, and yes, the time has finally come for my Portland recap. Apologies for the delays, life's been hectic. I hope you liked the cold open, I had a lot of fun with it. So, yeah, we're gonna go into everything, including the miraculous news of my incredible meteoric rise. But, before we do, I'm a huge fan of KeyForge, and if you are too, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell, as I'll be bringing you even more lore from KeyForge and the Crucible. So this Vault Tour was hosted by Guardian Games, a store out in Portland. It's a really neat store. They've got a very big space that looks like it might have been a repurposed warehouse or something like that. So it's very large, tall ceilings, lots of showroom space. It was a very, very cool place to get to play. They had us set up in one of their two sort of back areas on day 1 and day 2. They moved us into a different area for day 3. And it was really fun to get to play out here. There was a lot more people who showed up for Portland than we originally thought there were going to be. A lot of people decided to come kind of last second. So we ended up with, I think, close to 50 people. I'll have to check the official article when it goes up to get the exact number. But yeah, they had a really nice gaming space, and we had a lot of people there, which is really good. And as we all know, day 1 is sealed, and so everybody was getting in a few games before the actual thing started, and we were all very, very excited. I feel like this was going to be a good day. I was really pumped and ready to have a good time. So let's take a look at what I opened in Sealed. So I'm not going to bury the lead. Sealed is the format where I did very, very well. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not completely confident that what I pulled was incredible, but I think it went really well. There's some good synergies, and I'll show you what I pulled and why I pulled it, and we'll go through it together. But so the first deck I opened was Guildhead Pixel Petra, and I ended up pulling 2 pods from this deck, the Dis and the Logos. I wanted the Dis pod because it had a Gift of Amber with a bonus Amber icon on it, which seemed great, especially because it also had a Dust Imp, and I figured if I can get Dust Imp and a Gift of Amber to go off in the same turn with any other creature in play, that's 6 Amber for 2 cards, which felt incredible. It also had a Delta P, which is some incredible board control. Very, very good for wiping boards and just keeping your opponent down to the same number of creatures you have, which I didn't think I was going to have all that many. Multiple Clipped Wings, can't dislike it. 2 Venomox, 2 Vapor Imps. Like, I saw this Dispod and I was like, I'm playing this. And initially when I opened it, I didn't really think too much of the Cauterize Vitality. I was like, that's a pretty good card. I'll get some use out of it. And I should have thought more of it because I ended up choosing the Logos pod from this same deck. Now, I had 3 different Logos pods to choose from. We'll go through all 3 of them, and we'll talk about why I walked away from each one. But I ended up settling on this one almost entirely on the back of it having 2 copies of Candle Unit, who's kind of hard to get rid of in Amber Skies because he's just big enough to be a bit of a problem, and a pair of Worm Tunnels, which I figured I could probably get to go off because this deck also, or this pod also had a Hologramophone with 4, count them, 4 capture pips. So I was like, it's not an incredible pod, but I figure I'll give it a go. What I sorely underestimated was how good a Hologramophone with 4 capture pips, a grand total of 5 pips, is when you have a Cauterized Vitality that'll let you blow it up to make your opponent lose 5 Amber. And presumably you captured 4 the turn before, and you probably put them on Candle Units, which, as we just talked about, are a little hard to deal with. Also, Candle Units' action that lets him capture an Amber, not usually something I care about, but boy did it carry me far in Sealed. So we're going to talk about the other pod that I grabbed, and I grabbed that pod out of the Dinosaur Who Matches Rockets. And I took the Geistoid pod out of this one, which I was very happy with this Geistoid pod. Most of what I was after here, though, is in here somewhere so that I could recur the Dis, Gift of Amber, and Amber Imp, or Dust Imp, so that I could do that again. A couple of manifestations, because I wanted to be able to manifest the Amber Pips off of my off of my Gift of Amber, or possibly Clipped Wings, or possibly Root Access, which is the other reason I chose that Logos pod, is because it had a third card with an additional Amber pip on it, so that my manifestations had a really high chance of hitting something with 2 Amber pips on it, and they themselves have 1, so each manifestation was good for 3 Amber most of the time, and if I could get both of them, that's 6, which is pretty solid. I didn't really care too much about the rest of this pod. I was mostly after In Here Somewhere and the double manifestations. But it's not like it's a bad pod, but there's something you might have noticed already, and that's that I had a ton of discard pips. And so I ended up discarding a lot of the Geistoid pod. Like, I barely ever played the Harvest Skimmers. I don't think I ever played the Stratowise or the Tribute Collector or Wellstring. They just went straight to discard so that I could get more of my Dis and Logo stuff, and so that I could get the Geistoid things I was actually after, which was kind of nice. Now, this Logos pod, I definitely thought about, because it had Titan Sentry and Empyrean Charge, and I was like, man, if I can make that work. But you'll notice there's not really any other archive in that pod, and it does have 2 Effervescent Principles, which is good, but ultimately, I wanted the extra chance to make Manifestation better, and so I ended up walking away from it. So yeah, that was the logic there. This Mars pod never really spoke to me. Just didn't really seem like there was anything I was all that excited about. A couple of Kabooms and a Destroy Them All, but I already had Delta P for board control, so I felt pretty okay with that. And then the last one is Publisher Kudra Vic Zero. I took nothing out of this one, but it does have something I do think is really cool. Well, a couple of things. First of all, the Logos pod has 3 Effervescent Principles, which felt excessive. Like, completely excessive. And the Brobnar had a Raise Your Glass and 3 copies of Cacophonous Riot, which is good, but the creature count was a little low. I was basically working with a Bosch, a Grat Tattoo, and a returning champion, Terran Surefoot. I had 4 creatures total. I suppose the Sinwix did get a Brobnar pip, so he kind of counts, but yeah, 5 creatures seemed a little low to try to abuse triple Cacophonous Riot and Raise Your Glass. Maybe I should have tried it, but I felt like I already had my Dispod for good Amber generation. I wasn't really looking for this Brobnar pod to do that, but I don't know. Maybe it was a mistake. I'm not sure. I feel like I went pretty far. The Logos pod with 3 Effervescent Principles, we talked about that. And the Mars pod had something that made me really want to take it, but I ended up not doing it. First of all, it had 2 Sinwix the Bold, and I've had a lot of luck with Sinwix the Bold in Sealed. But it also had an Against All Flags. This one is a Maverick with a draw pip on it in Mars, which I was just like so tempted by. But at the end of the day, I said, no. I'm going to walk away from that. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think any of the pods that I grabbed were all that impressive in terms of SAS. The Geistoid's a 23. The Dis is a 30. Okay, that one's pretty decent. And the Logos is a 20. But I feel like I had a couple of loops that were really good, and they took me really far. Yeah, I think this was the right choice, and it did very well. So, I did end up doing really well in Sealed. My very first round was against Liquid Squash, which some of you know is an opponent that I have struggled to overcome in the past, but my deck performed admirably, I got my loops going, I gained a ton of Amber, I ran out ahead, and I managed to win, which was incredible. I won round 2 against an opponent I'd never played before, but his deck was also very impressive, and then my round 3 opponent was on stream. I encourage you, check out the stream, it was a cool game, where I played against DevDev, and DevDev's deck was terrifying, but none of his turns ended up working the way he wanted them to. I managed to get some manifestations off for big effect. I also managed to get my Dis loop to work. So I just performed really well and managed to win that game too. Then I won my 4th game and managed to 4-0 my way into the top 8. And guys, when I tell you that I was like shaking with excitement and like nervousness, because I've never made a top 8 before, and that was my next goal, was make a top 8, and I 4-0'd my way in. I didn't even have a loss going in. I was so blown away. What's more is when we finally got the top 8 list, it included DevDev and Liquid Squash, 2 of the opponents that I had faced in the Swiss rounds, which was like extra crazy. I was like, holy cow. I truly humbled by how far I came. And in my round of 8 game, that game was really close. My opponent's deck was terrifying. Just a disc pod from my nightmares. And I managed to win that game, but in total fairness, I think a big part of why I won is because he ended up shuffling his deck when he didn't want to, and he couldn't get the combo he wanted to go off because he didn't have any more cards in his discard pile, and his Arise had no disc creatures to bring back. It's a bit of a bummer, to lose that way, but I managed to get into the top 4 because of it, and I was playing my very best, but I do think, yeah, he kind of had me on the ropes before that. And then top 4 game, I rematched with Dev, and this time his deck does everything it was supposed to do. I mean, just firing on all cylinders. He had a Screen that was locking me out of houses. He had 2 Echo Flies with a Ghoul Keeping and 2 Raise Your Glass, so 2 different ways to get a Rule of 6 combo with Echo Fly for 6 Amber. And he did manage to get the Rule of 6 combo for 6 Amber. It was nuts. His deck was just firing on all cylinders, and I feel like mine was doing its best, but like, whew, once he got out ahead, it was just too far to catch up. So I ended up losing. But I made it into the top 4, you guys, in Sealed, which is like so great. It's my favorite format. I'm so happy that I managed to get to top 4. I am beyond thrilled, and I'm so humbled, and I'm ready to try again at KFC. Oh, I'm so ready to try again at KFC. I'm going for that last chance qualifier. I'm coming. I'm gonna. Of course, it'll probably be Prophetic Vision, so I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that was definitely the highlight of my weekend. But there was certainly other things we're talking about. So we'll talk about Saturday and Sunday as well. But yeah, top 4 in Sealed. What? Okay, so Saturday I played Archon. I played the deck that I've been playing pretty much consistently. I have an Alpha Gamma deck that I keep thinking about playing, but there's just so much counterplay out there right now. So I instead decided that I was going to go ahead and play my tried and true. We'll take a look at him here in a second, but yeah, I decided that I would just do what I've been doing and see how far that gets me. Archon's in a weird place right now, so you just kind of do your best. And here he is, the one, the only, Gilpin the Triangular Vaultmaster. You know him, you love him, you've seen him before. This is my Holofest deck that has a Gauntlet of Command and a Shadows pod that includes a Speed Sigil and a whole bunch of steel from some Ronnies and some Bonithings and Too Much to Protect and 3 Grand Alliance Councils. We've seen him before. He's a fun deck. Unfortunately, creature control and Amber generation through fighting and things like that just do nothing in the current Archon meta, and I got squashed. I 0-2'd my way out of Archon quick, fast, and in a hurry. And yeah, it was just really upsetting. In my first game, my opponent played a Clipped Wings and purged my Holofest out of my hand. The Holofest I had just drawn, by the way. Like, they played a card, I played a turn and drew the Holofest. They played 2 Clipped Wings, and the very first Clipped Wings hit my Holofest and purged it, and I was like, that's the game. So, and then my second game was against Liquid Squash, and he beat me as he normally does. Which, like, yeah, the status quo was restored, balance returned to the universe, and I bounced out into the loser's bracket. Although, instead of playing second Amber, I decided I would actually do a sealed pod. So we'll take a look at that deck too. So for our sealed pod, we decided to do Vaultmaster 2025, and I opened Fatema Steward Master the Enigmatic, and I like this deck a lot. Like, I like this deck a lot. In particular, this is an Honors Keysis deck, which is one of the many Logos key cheats, and this one is usually considered not that great because it's a little hard to pull off, but this one works. Like, it's got a Sutterkin, it's got a Time Traveler, it's got 2 Wild Wormholes, it's got a Phase Shift, it's got Lithologica. Like, it just cycles through cards on the Logos turns enough that pulling off an Honors Keysis isn't that hard. Now, it's probably not going to be free, but you can likely get it for a reasonable price. Less Amber than you will have generated in the turn, usually. It also had 2 Compods, which is really nice. And, some Mars creatures that were not too bad. It had a Zizok, which 2 Compods plus Zizok is a board wipe some of the time, occasionally, which was kind of nice. Plus a Mars first. The Geistoid was not particularly impressive, but, a little bit of board control with some all hands on deck, a Grim Reaper to get rid of something really problematic, a couple of Portal Guardians for some protection, a Parabyte to make keys more expensive. This deck just kind of worked. I won my first game, and then my second game I ended up losing, and then I won my third game. So I feel like I did pretty well. It says this deck's expected amber is pretty low, which I definitely agree with, because even though it had a neat Logos trick that would pull off an Honor's Kesis, it didn't really have all that many amber pips, actually. Like, the actual amber generation is kind of not incredible, but I don't know. I thought it was a fun deck. I had fun playing it. I'm glad I did the sealed pod. This was a good time. It was a good way to spend the end of Saturday. So on Sunday, they actually moved us to the other venue hall that they had. This one had a little bar in it, which I didn't even notice on Friday or Saturday. But yeah, there was like a little fully stocked, well, not fully stocked, but I mean, it had beer and stuff. And so this is where we did Sundays, where we did the finals, is where we did the award ceremony. And I actually commentated on the top table for Sealed, which is super cool. You should check that out over on Ghost Galaxy's YouTube. I did commentary, guys. It was really great. This weekend overall was just a blast. So yeah, that was Portland. One more shout out before I go. Well, actually several, because lots of shout outs at the end. But my traveling companions this time around were my mom, who some of you have seen at Vault Tours before, and my nephew came along to this one. My 10-year-old nephew came along, and he had so much fun, and everybody was so nice. He walked away with, like, a mountain of swag, and, like, they even, some people even sent him some more stuff afterwards. So, like, thank you guys for being the incredible community that you are. Much love. That was great to get to see my nephew have so much fun and meet all these people and have a great time. He's talking about coming to KFC, everybody. Like, oh man, I'm thrilled with how that turned out. And of course my mom was there, and she was very helpful, and she stayed with him and helped him get to all of his tables and everything. So shout out to Guardian Games, an excellent host at an excellent place. Shout out to Ghost Galaxy. Thanks for running a great venue. For running a good tournament. And shout out to G, who was our judge this time around, because Marcus got to play, so that was crazy. But yeah, this was an incredible weekend. I did so well, and I don't know if I can repeat that performance, but hey, the bar has been set, and let's see if I can fight my way in the last chance qualifier. We'll see, right? Because I'm not going to Baltimore, and I'm not going to Vegas, so that's it. It's LCQ or bust. But yeah, that was Portland. That's all I have for you today. So until next time, later, Archons.